Welcome to Sakshi TV's special immigration show with attorney Ms. Prashanthi Reddy from the law offices of Prashanthi Reddy PLLC. Please note that Sakshi TV now has 2 immigration shows every week: on Tuesday at 3 p.m. EST with attorney Ms. Sheila Murthy, Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. EST with attorney Ms. Prashanthi Reddy in English, and on Friday at 6 p.m. EST with attorney Bhanu Ilindra. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you're an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email usa@sakshi.com or call 866-725-7441. Before we begin the show, please note that the information provided on this show is not a legal advice and is for general informational purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for use of information. If you need specific legal advice, please contact the attorney directly. Hello Prashanthi, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you, attorney?
Very well, thank you. So, today's topic is the H1B registration progress and how to file your H1B cap petition in April. So, we will continue the knowledge session along with the news and updates on latest immigration, followed by Q&A. But before we get into the topic, you can call us on the numbers on the screen for questions related to immigration and also ask for topics. So, Ms. Reddy, getting back to our topic, do we have any latest immigration updates that you would like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, again, I know we're back on the H1B registration topic. It's just that it's so important right now with the H1B registration in progress, and since it happens only once a year and the registration is only for 18 days, it's important during this time to focus on, H1B petitions and H1B registration so that we can address the concerns of people that are, presently filing for a registration or planning to file for, a H1. So, to start off with, I'd like to give some important dates. The H1B registration was opened on March 1 and it closes on March 18. And please remember, it closes on March 18 but at 12 p.m. So noon, 12 p.m. EST. So it's not in the evening. Or it's not at 12 midnight. It's 12 p.m. EST noon. That's the deadline. The first day to file H1s after the lottery is April 1st. So that's next month, the beginning of the month. So make sure you have all your information documentation ready by that time. You have 90 days to file that H1. So while your first day is April 1, the last day that you could possibly file is June 30th. So that's 90 days, so make sure that you don't go beyond that time, and there is plenty of time for you to prepare and file documents. But I do understand sometimes jobs get delayed. There's some documents that we're not able to get on time. So I think that 90 days is something to keep in mind so you can plan better. Quickly again, this year we got some new guidance on duplicate filings. Duplicate filings are still allowed in a certain sense. So let me explain. So one employer cannot file 2 petitions for the same employee. That is very clear. But the same one employee can file duplicate petitions for himself through different employers. So if Sam can file 5 H1B registrations through companies A, B, C, and D. So, but there is again a restriction on this, and that restriction is that the job has to be different. So A, B, C, and D companies cannot be offering the same job. They have to be offering different jobs. Number 2, second restriction is that A, B, C, and D companies cannot be colluding with each other and filing H1s just so that Sam can increase his chances in the H1B registration. So if they're only filing for that purpose and they don't really have a job for him, that is not allowed. So if they find out, all your H1 registrations will get cancelled. If you filed a H1B petition, it will be denied. If it's already approved, it will be withdrawn. So be very careful. Another quick update is the duplicates. In order to avoid filing these duplicates by accident, now the system will alert you. Earlier there were no alerts. Even if you filed, the system would accept it. But now there are alerts. So as soon as you file a duplicate, That means 2 petitions for the same person. And if you enter his name twice, it'll alert. The system is supposed to alert you. And the last update, but not the least, is there was some litigation on this H1B registration process. But as of now, that is something that we don't have to worry about, because there was a summary judgment, and the court has left the registration law alone as is. So there is no change with reference to registration law. The problem stated in the lawsuit was that duplicate registration should not be allowed, because those people who file only one registration are then at a disadvantage, and the pick rate is very low, and the registrations are then going to waste. So that was the complaint, but it's status quo right now. The judge hasn't agreed to remove this present version of the H1B registration. Torni, those are my updates.
Right. So, Ms. Reddy, before we move on to our questions for the show today, may I take a moment to, say how good looking you are today? I mean, you really
thank
look
you so
stunning.
much.
You look very good.
Thank you.
So, right. So, to say
You
that.
just made my day, Torni.
Oh, I did. Thank you. I'm
I
glad
wish
that
I'd
is
seen you in the
validated.
morning.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad. Then let's power through today. So moving on to our question, how there is the H1B registration process, and there is a lot of hush bush about it. So how's the process going on so far?
So far, in the beginning, we had a rough start because the pages were lagging. The login, even for attorneys and as well as clients, the login passwords and usernames are not working. The screen was disappearing. There was a whole lot of problems. It was not updating in real time. So the first few days it was problematic, and we had a few anxious moments. But since then, things have definitely improved. I know they've made some updates, and maybe because of the updates, there were some issues in the beginning. But right now, everything seems to be working smooth, and we don't have any issues. So that's touch wood. We still have a few more days to go, so we're hoping that the system will continue to cooperate.
Well, if it's going good, then it's going great, I'm sure. So, my next question is what to keep in mind when, when we're trying to file an H1B cap case, and in case it gets picked in the lottery. So, what are the things to keep in mind when it actually gets picked?
Right. So, this is important because this is the next step now. We are moving on from the registration. We have talked about the registration the last few weeks. Now we're moving on, since the time is nearing to file the actual H1B petition, and it's time to get ready for that. Since it's going to start from April 1st, I think it's important to talk a little bit about what the next step entails and what documentation you should keep ready and what the process is. We can talk about this a little further next week as well, but just to reiterate in the time that we have, I just wanted to give a summary to start off with.
Right.
So first, we have to determine if that foreign national or that employee that you want to file for qualifies for the H1 or not. So to do that, we have to show whether the job, first of all, qualifies for a H1. That is the job a specialty occupation? Meaning, does the job require a bachelor's in a specific area to be able to perform the job? And second, does the wage rate, you have to find out what is the wage rate for the job. You cannot put a wage that is below the prevailing wage. So there are many ways of finding out what the industry wage is. One of them is from the Department of Labor website, and that's the most commonly used wage rate. So it's important to find out for your job, once you determine what your job title is, to figure out then where the work location is, and then based on the work location, figure out what is the prevailing wage for your job in your particular county. And when you're determining the job, I would suggest that you use, there are 4 levels. So I suggest not to use level 1 if it can be avoided. And we can talk further about that as to why not to use it. But usually On an average, we use level 2 a lot. And for more advanced positions, level 3 and level 4. So once the wage rate, you figure out what is the wage for your job, then you file something called a labor condition application with that wage. And you promise to pay that wage in the labor condition application. And the labor condition application is filed with the Labor Department, not with the USCIS. And once you get an approval from them, then it takes about 5 to 7 business days to get an approval from the Labor Department. So this, if you're planning to file your H1 on April 1st, you'll have to get the LCA done before that. Or if you start on April 1st, then most probably you'll be able to file on 7th or 8th. So it's important to know that there is a 7-day waiting period for the LCA. And the LCA can get denied, so it's important to file it properly without making any clerical errors and ticking all the right columns. So once your LCA gets approved, there's a lot of useful information on the LCA, such as the end client name, if there is an end client, their address, the prevailing wage, as I said, the wage that you're offering, which has to be higher than the prevailing wage, and of course the address and name of the company, contact information of the company. So there is a lot of useful information there, and that's important. LCA is important because there are a lot of regulations behind that LCA. They want to make sure you're paying the prevailing wage and you're not underpaying your employees, and therefore they require you to post your LCA in your office space so that your other employees can see as well, so that you inform them as to what is the wage that you're paying. So if anyone has any complaints, then they will reach out to the Labor Department. So LCA is pretty significant. Once the LCA is approved, you will file your H1B cap petition. In order to file this, you will of course first would have received an approval from your registration. So your H1B cap petition would have been picked in the lottery, and you'll get a notice. And that notice will give you information as to where you should file your petition. And you have to, under all circumstances, send your H1B petition only to that address, and not to any of the other addresses that you send extensions to, transfers to, amendments to, etc. Follow the address. So if you don't, then the petition will come back. And there's no saying when it will come back, so you might lose your opportunity, right? So important to follow that. Now, once you file your H1B petition, the way to file it is that you have to prepare something called, you have to fill out something called an I-129 form. That form is rather lengthy, has several pages. There's an I-129 petition, I-129H petition, and an I-129 DC petition. 3 sets of petitions that have to be prepared, which has all kinds of information, including information about your company, information about the job, the salary you're paying, the duties, the beneficiaries information, what is their status, if they're in the US right now, their date of birth, their personal particulars, etc. So again, remember to fill out this H1B petition or I-129 petition correctly. In addition to that, you have to include the LCA approval that you got. You have to include your registration notice that you got, that you were picked in the lottery. And you also have to submit supporting documents, such as information about the company, proof that your company actually has a job for you, because your employment cannot be speculative. The employment has to be a real job, and not something where they say, oh, we don't have a job right now, but once our H1 gets approved, then we'll look for a job. You can't say that. So also documentation related to the beneficiary, that is the employee, that is the documentation to show that the employee is in status, such as his proof of status like an I-94, his passport, etc. So these are all the supporting documents. So once you file this, if you file it in premium processing, if that is available for cap cases this year, then you will get the response in 30 days. You have to pay $2,500. That's the fee for cap cases. Once you get the response, that response could either be an approval or it could be a request for further evidence. If it's an approval, great, depending on where. If your employee is in the US, then they just, start working as of October 1st. Remember, because we are filing the petition with the start date of October 1st. We cannot file the petition with an immediate start date because the fiscal year starts on October 1st. And if you try to file it earlier, your H1B will get denied and everything will go waste. And again, you might lose your opportunity, that window of opportunity. So remember to put the start date as October 1st. So you will be able to start on October 1st, or whenever your H1 gets approved, the later date, whichever is that date. So not before October 1st. So and you're given 30 days to start, because sometimes people need to get social security numbers and stuff like that, and employers cannot put their employees on the payroll without a social security number. So you can immediately start once that date becomes current, once it's October 1st. But if the person is in India, if an employee is in India, then there's another step that he has to go to. He or she has to take the H1B approval and has to get an appointment with the consulate, US consulate in India. Then if the consulate they'll review the documentation, they look at the unclient information, employee information, you have to the original H1B approval, etc. And they will either approve the visa or they'll deny it. If they deny it, not much can be done. Unfortunately, there's no appeal process. But if they do approve it, then again, you'll be able to enter the US. You have to carry your original, of course, your passport with the visa stamped on it and your original H1B approval, and an employment letter from your employer saying that you still have a job. They still have a job for you. So that's then you come in and then get on your payroll and life goes on. So that's the process in a nutshell. If we have time, Thorni, I can go into more details with reference to.
We do have some time.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So I was mentioning earlier that the job has to be a specialty occupation.
Right.
And I wanted to give some more details on what is a specialty occupation and who qualifies. How do we know whether the job is will get approved for a H1 or not? Not all jobs get approved for a H1. In general, we know like some jobs, it's common knowledge that computer science jobs, IT professionals, doctors, lawyers, accountants, these kind of jobs, are the usual H1B jobs. But you'll be surprised to know there are other kinds of jobs that get approved for H1, such as an executive chef position, for example, could also get approved for a H1, a market research analyst. So there are a lot of positions, physical therapist, dentist, doctor, that qualify. So it's not about the job title. So what is it then that decides whether the H1 is a specialty occupation, your job is a specialty occupation or not? So the first thing is to file a H1B petition and to hire H1B worker. The job position must qualify as a specialty occupation. The beneficiary must qualify for the job. So the job qualifies as specialty occupation only if they meet certain requirements. That is, the job should require at least a minimum of a bachelor's degree in a specific field. So bachelor's degree, for example, if the job requires a bachelor's degree in arts, it's most probably not a specialty occupation. But if they require a bachelor's degree in a particular field like political science, it's specific, it's not a vague degree, it's not broad. So then most probably the position qualifies for a specialty occupation. So the minimum requirement should be a bachelor's degree. And the role of the job position is such that only a person with a degree can perform that job. So you have to be able to show that the duties are complex, that a job is bachelor's degree is required, or you have to be able to show that it's common in the industry to hire someone with a bachelor's degree. For example, then you don't have to worry about showing whether the duties are complex or not. For example, a lawyer, you have to be able to show that in the industry it's common for a lawyer to have a law degree. And that's very easy to show. You can just go on the internet, pull out a bunch of Dice or Monster or Indeed jobs and see what the requirement is. right? Look at some newspaper advertisements, and you can show easily what the minimum requirement is in the industry for that particular job. It's also common knowledge. Also, if they don't have a degree, they should at least have an equivalent of a degree, the employee. So that means they have to have work experience. And coming to that, so it's not just enough that the job is a specialty occupation. Not only does the job have to qualify, now the beneficiary, the employee also has to qualify. So one is job, second is employee's qualifications. So the employee should hold at least a US bachelor's degree or a foreign degree equivalent to a US bachelor's degree in order to qualify for a H1. Now, if they're filing under master's cap, we know that there are two lotteries done every year, one for bachelor's cap, and 20,000 numbers are allotted to master's cap. Now, in order to qualify for a master's cap, they have to have a US master's degree. And it has to be from either a non-profit organization, or a qualifying organization. So, that's very important that for master's degree holders. Now, if the beneficiary also holds a license, then we don't have to submit the bachelor's degree. All we have to submit is the license, especially when the license is required for that position. Giving you an example again, going back to a lawyer, an attorney. In order to practice as an attorney, you need a license.
So, Ms. Reddy, we, with the permission you've given me, we have a caller on hold, Mr. Naga from Los Angeles. Thank you for calling, Naga. You may ask Ms. Reddy your question directly.
Yeah, hi. Prashanthi Reddy. I have a question. So, I'm on H1B visa and my priority date is in February 2015. So currently I'm based in Los Angeles, California. After the COVID thing, my company has given option to work remotely. So my plan is to move to Austin, Texas, and wanted to know your opinion in this regard. Is it the right time to do that? Will there be an impact on the timeline for the green card if I do through Texas Service Center and stuff like that? Should we wait? Is it the right time? Can you please guide us?
Right. So there are two issues that we have to worry about. One is that your H1, of course. Now, if you're moving to a county which is out of the MSA of your approved LCA, then of course, as you know, you have to file an amended petition. And you have to file the amended petition first before you move. Or if you can show that, it was not meant to be a long-term move, then you can file it within 30 days. But I suggest you at least file it and then plan your move. So amended petition is needed if your new location is not covered under the LCA, under the work locations. There's not much of an issue with an amended petition. The good thing is you can continue to work. And worst case scenario, if it gets denied, then you have to come back and work in your original location. Second thing is with reference to the green card, that is a problem. So, well, if your company is not, it depends on what is happening here. So if only you are moving and your company is not moving, and if your company allows remote work, or if you are doing a job where you're a roving employee, meaning you have to move from one client to another, then as long as all that language is there in the perm application, it's fine. Otherwise, it's better to first move, decide where you're going to be, and then start your application once you have decided. Because once you've placed the ads in a certain place and you've done certain things, if something changes, then you'll have to redo all the ads again, redo the perm filing. So that's a big mess.
Right, I hope.
Is that clear? Yeah. I don't know if, Hopefully,
Yes,
it is
I
clear.
hope that cleared your question, Naga. Thank you for calling. So, Ms. Reddy, unfortunately, with that, we come to the end of the session. But before we end the session, do you have a golden immigration to give our viewers? I mean, it being the H1B registration process season, any hot tips?
Well, one just common sense tip would be to keep in mind March 18th. That is your deadline. Keep in mind, don't do things in the last minute because everything is being done online. You don't know whether the system will cooperate or it won't. So do things well in advance. As I always say, keep yourself well informed if you're doing it yourself. Otherwise, take the help of an attorney. And get ready for your H1 filings in case your case gets picked. Even before you do the registration, there is some preliminary work that needs to be done. You have to at least make sure that your case is approvable before you do the registration. So make sure you do that homework now.
Right. So, but, just before we end this, I wanted to check if, you wanted to cover a little more about, the kind of jobs that, are considered. Not all kinds of jobs are considered, you were saying. So, is there any more, important points that you want to summarize?
Sure. So, as I was saying, the employee should have a bachelor's degree or the equivalent of a bachelor's degree through, work experience. So sometimes even if they don't, for example, the main problem we have is a lot of degrees in India, especially BSc Computer Science, unless it's an engineering degree, those degrees are all 3-year degrees. So we want to make sure that they have the equivalent of a 4-year degree. So sometimes you have to get an evaluation done combining the person's degree and his work experience. And you can get an outside evaluator to evaluate that and give that person the equivalent of a bachelor's degree from the US. So that's important to note that it has to be a 4-year degree. If it's not, then you can combine the degree and the work experience to make it into a 4-year degree. Another quick point is decide on your occupations. I'm just talking about IT right now, but a lot of occupations may not qualify traditionally for a specialty occupation just because USCIS thinks that they don't. There's not much common sense in them, but looks like some occupations such as systems analysts, program analysts are coming back because there's been some progress on those occupations and on USCIS's interpretation, and there has been some
Right.
litigation. So, watch out for those occupations as well.
Right. So, Ms. Reddy, thank you so much for all the valuable insights and information you've constantly been giving us and our viewers for, benefit of all of us. And with that, we come to the end of the session. Thank you for being on the show, Ms. Reddy.
Thank you, Thorni. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You're watching Sakshi Live. This is Thorni. Thank you.